All right, another option when doing the eye is working with watercolors. And when I work with watercolors, sometimes I like to work with crayons to create wax techniques, wax resist techniques. Sometimes I like to use watercolor pencils to come back and add more depth to the eye. So we're gonna see a couple different things happening in this picture. The first I'm gonna start with is a wax resist technique. So in my pupil, I wanna have a reflection. So I am going to take my white and I am going to color that reflection in so that I know that it remains. I want to keep the whites of my eye white. So I'm also going to color those in so that any watercolors that might want to bleed into here will not be allowed to do so. Okay. I want to show movement and depth and all of that happening in my eye. So I can do this a couple different ways. I can start by doing wet on wet and getting the paints to blend and smear and spread that way. I can work with a dry brush to add depth and darker colors in. I can also work with crayons. So I'm going to kind of do a little bit of all of them in the eye. So the first one, I want to kind of create this starburst effect coming out. And I'm going to do that on this side with crayon. Lighter in some areas, darker in some areas. It adds a variety of colors. Okay, on this side, I'm going to work with a couple different watercolor techniques. So first, I'm going to get my brush wet. And in here, I'm going to get my surface ready just by adding water so that I can create a wet on wet and I can fill all of this in. Then working with my purple, I'm going to get my palette ready by adding some water, and then I can just drop my purple paint right on there. And all those areas that are wet, it just starts to fill in. And then I can come back and I can get it to go to all areas. Clean up my lines, clean up my edges. And get this to fill in quite nicely. And when it dries, you should see that starburst of my crayon popping out. I don't like here where it's pilling, and that means the paper is kind of curving and creating a cup, and the paint is collecting there. So I can come in with a paper towel and I can dab and I can soak up in those areas so that it is one constant color. I like that. And then you can see where that's coming through. Now on this side, it's going to be wet and dry. My paint is wet. My brush is wet. And look at how much darker that color becomes. So it would make it really difficult to add different details in there. So seeing that it's that dark, I'm just going to come in now with some water, and I can thin and spread this paint around. Again, I want to try and make it a solid color or an even color. Now when you're working on yours, you do not need to do all of these techniques that I am doing. I'm just trying to show you different techniques in one, and you see which ones work for you and use those in your watercolor painting of the eye. All right, so there's my purple. I need to let that dry so that I can create this starburst effect using a dry brush technique later on. In the meantime, let's work on these edges here. On my edges, I think I want to do blue. And I want it to be a little bit of a darker blue. A little bit more paint. You know, the key to watercolors is water. If I have a lot of water, I get very, very thin, very light, very translucent colors. And if I have a medium amount, my colors are medium. If I have hardly any water at all, my colors are very dark. If your watercolor is sticky, then you don't have enough water. You are picking up the damp watercolors in the palette that might be drying from another class, so they're sticky and damp and you're not adding enough water. So then it's almost like a goo and it globs on, and then it becomes quite messy and we're often not satisfied with it. Again, the outside, I'm gonna do some green for my eyelid, and this is going to be wet on dry, because I want to have more control in this area. So I've done nothing to the paper ahead of time. I'm just painting with the watercolor. Down below. Also know if your paper is really wet, if you're doing a lot of wet on wet technique and your area hasn't dried first, then your colors will blend in with each other. So right now I'm doing wet on dry. It should dry faster. You can always fan your paper to get it to dry. You can blow on it to get it to dry, or you can just wait. Watercolors don't take very long. In fact, this area of my eye is almost dry. The blue is not quite, which is why we see that happening. I'll come in with a little more paint and clean up those fingerprints. I don't really want those in my eye. Okay, once this is dry, we're going to do the background with a wet on wet technique, and then we'll start doing some dry brush techniques to add more details to the eye. Okay, now that my paper is dry, I'm ready to work to complete it by using a wet on wet technique. So remember, with wet on wet, we're going to get our paper wet. I'm going to switch to a larger brush so that I can spread the water quicker throughout the paper. When I'm coming to the edges, I do want to be very precise with where I'm at. I'm almost avoiding touching it, just so that when the colors start to run, I really don't want them to run into the green of the eye. I'm going to try and control where I'm wetting the paper down as much as I can. And then I want to get my colors ready. I'm going to work with the warm colors, red, orange, a little bit of yellow. This one's got some green in it. It's a little bit dirty. So I'm just going to clean it up a bit, get it wet, dab it with a paper towel, and then that green comes out, so my yellow be a nice bright yellow. All right, so then I'm going to pick up my color. And I'm just going to start dropping it onto my paper. And as I kind of splotch this around, it starts to fill in, and then it looks neat when all of the colors start to blend. And the more color I drop, the deeper the colors become. They start to blend. Add some yellow in here. This reminds me almost of tie-dye because of a very abstract feel in the background. I don't think I've seen details on a face quite like this, but that's okay. It's all about being creative, making the eye your own, making it unique. And adding interest. I like to mix warm and cool colors because they create a natural separation. And so because my background has all of these warm colors happening, and my eye has all of the cool colors in it, it makes our eye get drawn directly to that eye. And then because the background is so unique and different, our eye starts to move all around the background, looking at all of the different depths of color happening as I drop these reds in place and these oranges in place. Your paper is going to be quite wet after this, and so you're going to want to do this quickly at the beginning of class, and then you want to just let it sit and dry in place. This would be a disaster to try and pick up and bring to the drying rack. In areas where it's not blending, I can just come in and start adding water. And all of this paint starts to blend. Now here, I colored with white. So in doing so, I've protected the white of the eye. And when it dries, the watercolor should repel and move away, or we can quickly wipe it away and the white of the eye is left intact, it's all white. The final step in this would be adding black. Again, you'd want to wait for it to dry and then come in with your black. The pupil, I could add black to when I'm done doing my dry brush with my purple to get the starburst effect. Remember on this side I did crayon. Over here I want to work with a brush and I want to pull that purple in. So my purple has not been touched in a while. It's almost getting to that sticky point. I'm going to dip my brush in and then I just kind of work with it and I get my brush coated. And this side of the tray is meant for doing things like this. And then I can come in and I can pull this brush with this dry brush technique. So those colors are very intense. Because the brush is dry, you see those brush strokes and you get that starburst effect coming out of the eye. I really like working with that dry brush technique. I think I want to add some of that into my blue as well. This brush, if I clean it, it's going to be wet. So I would want to switch brushes. That's why there's plenty of brushes available. Just make sure you're using watercolor brushes when you're doing this. This one. Okay, so here's my blue, same thing. I'm gonna get this on my brush. I'm gonna dab it so I don't have a lot, and I'm drying as I go. And then we can pull those colors outwards. All right. The last color I need in my pupil is going to be black. Remember, I colored the reflection with my white crayon, and look at how that crayon is just pushing that black paint away so that I get that reflection in the eye. And remember, watercolors are very translucent, so my black is not very dark. When it's dry, I can come back and I can add more black on top to really make that pop. Okay, so we're going to wait for this to dry, and then we'll do our final step where we add some outlining and some eyelashes, and then this one will be done. Alright, now that my background has dried, I'm ready to finish my picture, so I'm going to work with my black, and I want more again with my dry brush. I can get more control, and I just want to keep darkening the picture. Okay, once I've done my outlining, then I'm not putting any more paint on my brush. I want to start to pull eyelashes out for this project. I'm going to imagine that the nose is on this side. So remember, if the nose is here, we pull our eyelashes out sideways. And I don't want them to be really big and obnoxious. So this is why I'm pulling from this area, and I'm not adding any more paint to the brush. Our eyelashes can become overwhelming, very overpowering if we make them too dark. Down below, they're much smaller, much less of an eyelash. It's a little bit wet on those sides a little bit. So, okay, with this, I'm basically done. I would want to come in and add my nose over here. And because I did this very splotchy, all I need to do is kind of intensify this area to represent the nose. So again, dry brush, coming in and adding this red detail in here. Finish up. Nose. I like how it kind of fades in like that. So the nose is there, but it's not too overpowering. Everything else is in there. Our eye is focusing. The background adds interest, and I think we're pretty much good to go. Some of these areas in here where it's not quite to the green of the eye bother me. So I can come in and kind of add, pull some color closer. Because I just painted the black to do the outlines, I want to be very cautious of that area. I love working with watercolors because just by adding water to them, even when they're dry, you can start to spread them and blend them. A lot of times you can erase them if you make mistakes. close to the black. Like I did there. There's some water I can pull and I can stop that and clean it up. Alright, so now I think that we're coming up to our edges. And it's looking more uniform and connected. And like one piece. Okay. When you feel that you're done and you're happy with it, upload it. We're good to go. And this is our watercolor version of the eye.